We're just giving everyone a minute to join us. I see people starting to pop in. Welcome everyone to today's clinical trial webinar. We are so fortunate to be in a time where we have several ongoing clinical trial opportunities. And I would like to thank all of you for considering participating in a clinical trial. As you all know, PWS, it's complex, it's a spectrum, and ultimately, we will require multiple treatments in order to see full independence for our loved ones with PWS. I know I'm speaking to the choir, but clinical trials are that pivotal first step to making new treatments available, and the trailblazers like you who choose to participate in these trials are the ones that we will all be thanking when life-changing treatments become a reality. Today, we are sharing information on Carbetocin, a potential treatment for hyperphagia in Prader-Willi syndrome. We have a short presentation planned and reserved time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. Just a reminder, you can submit your questions through the Q&A function that's located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And with that, without further ado, I would like to hand over the presentation to Dr. Joachim from Acadia Pharmaceuticals, who will speak about their CARE PWS clinical trial.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks to everybody for joining. Really appreciate it. I'd like to tell you about the clinical studies in Carbetocin for hyperphagia and Prader-Willi syndrome. First, I'd like to go just move to the next slide and tell you a little bit about Acadia Pharmaceuticals. Our focus is on neuroscience. We have about 500 employees. We're based in San Diego, California. We also have an office in Princeton, New Jersey. And as you see, our purpose is to fight disease so more of you shines through. We focus on disorders for which no approved therapies have been approved. In 2016, we received FDA approval for a medicine that treats hallucinations and delusions associated with Parkinson's disease psychosis. And only last year, in 2023, we received approval for a treatment of Rett syndrome in adults and pediatric patients 2 years and older. So Rett syndrome, like Prader-Willi syndrome, is a rare genetic neurodevelopmental disorder. It occurs with about the same frequency as Prader-Willi syndrome. So that was our first program in a rare disease, and Prader-Willi syndrome is our second program in a rare disease. So a little bit about why Carbetocin should work for hyperphagia and Prader-Willi syndrome. One of the characteristics of Prader-Willi syndrome is a deficiency of a naturally occurring hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin has been consistently found in people with PWS to have fewer neurons that produce the hormone. And in a mouse model of PWS, called the MAGEL2 mouse model, improvement was seen when the mice were given oxytocin. So in humans, the hormone oxytocin regulates several functions in the body, including hunger, anxiety, social behavior, and bonding. And oxytocin deficiency is associated with hyperphagia and behavioral issues in people with PWS. Carbetocin is an investigational medication that's very much like oxytocin. It is thought to bind to oxytocin receptors with greater sensitivity than oxytocin itself. That means it's potentially more potent at activating the receptors on cells that oxytocin activates. So Carbetocin in its intravenous form, IV Carbetocin, has been used widely outside the US in about 90 countries, and that's to prevent postpartum hemorrhaging. And it's a well-established safety profile for IV Carbetocin. So many of you are aware that there was a clinical study of Carbetocin nasal spray for hyperphagia and PWS conducted by Levo Therapeutics. This was a phase 3 study, which means it was intended to produce efficacy and safety results that could lead to approval by FDA. The study was called CARE PWS. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about that study. That included 119 participants who were 7 to 19 years of age. They were treated with one of 2 doses of carbetocin or placebo for 8 weeks. The study failed to show the primary objective, which was to show improvement of hyperphagia at the higher dose that was studied. However, in a separate analysis, the low-dose carbetocin treatment showed improvement in hyperphagia. So in January 2022, the FDA denied approval of carbetocin for PWS, saying there wasn't enough efficacy data at the high dose, which was the point of the study, the goal of the study, to study the high dose. And they recommended that an additional study confirming the efficacy of the low dose be performed. So carbetocin is still an investigational drug, and the safety and efficacy of the drug have not been established or approved by FDA. So Acadia acquired Levo Therapeutics, and we are conducting a phase 3 study to investigate the safety and efficacy of the low dose of carbetocin for hyperphagia in PWS. So the goal of the study is to collect data on benefit and safety of carbetocin nasal spray to support another FDA application to have the drug approved for use in clinical care. So regarding that study, the study is 12 weeks long. Half the participants will receive carbetocin nasal spray 3 times a day, and the other half will receive placebo nasal spray 3 times a day. And participants will be randomly selected to get carbetocin or placebo. Neither they nor their doctor nor Acadia will know which one they're getting. And as it says in the middle of the slide here, there will be 170 participants, 85 people getting placebo and 85 people getting carbetocin nasal spray at the low dose, which is 3.2 milligrams. We started enrolling the study in November of 2023, and we're still enrolling patients. And after patients complete that study, the 12-week study, they can enroll in another study called an open label extension study, in which every participant receives carbetocin nasal spray. So here are some key criteria that must be met for a patient to be eligible to enter the study. So the study is for people 5 to 30 years of age who have Prader-Willi syndrome, who have evidence of a mutation causing Prader-Willi syndrome, and who have hyperphagia, which means they have increased appetite and decreased satiety accompanied by food-seeking behavior. Participants cannot enter the study if they have an active upper respiratory infection, if they have cerebrovascular disease or a history of brain trauma or epilepsy. They can't enter if they've started new food-related interventions within the previous month, or if they've participated in another research study of another treatment within the previous 6 months. And there will be other assessments done at the investigative site and other things about the participant's medical history that will be reviewed to make sure the person is eligible for the study. But these are some of the key criteria. This is a diagram of the COMPASS PWS study. It shows the fact, again, that half the participants will be randomly assigned to get carbetocin and half will get placebo nasal spray. There will be 5 clinic visits in the study, including a screening visit to check that the participant qualifies for the study. A baseline visit, that's the visit at which either carbetocin or placebo is started. And then 3 more clinic visits, 1 at week 2, 1 at week 8, and 1 at week 12. And then as it shows on the right-hand side of the page, then patients can, if they like, enter the open label extension study to get where every participant gets carbetocin nasal spray. So the COMPASS PWS study has a website. It's compasspws.com. And that website includes more information both on the main study and on the open label extension study. And it also identifies locations where participants can join the study. There's a map, and there's a map that shows the different sites and gives the status of the site, and that's updated. and also a way to ask for further information about participating. So I hope you guys will check out the website, COMPASSPWS.com. There's also a video on the website, which is about how the study is conducted. And if it's okay, I'd like to show you that video. It's just a couple of minutes long. It's on the next slide.
Thank you for learning about the COMPASS PWS study for people with Prader-Willi syndrome. Participation in a clinical study is an important part in the development of potential new medicines for treating PWS and its symptoms. The purpose of this study is to learn more about a study drug called Carbetocin nasal spray in people with PWS who have hyperphagia, also known as excessive appetite. Carbetocin nasal spray binds to oxytocin receptors with greater sensitivity than oxytocin, a naturally occurring hormone. In the study, Carbetocin nasal spray, or placebo, is inhaled through the nose 3 times each day. This study will last approximately 19 weeks. It will involve a maximum of 5 visits to the study center, as well as up to 2 telephone or video calls. During the study treatment period of the main study, eligible participants will be randomly assigned, like flipping a coin, to study treatment with either the study drug or placebo, an inactive substance that looks like the study drug but contains no active ingredient. The study treatment is taken 3 times a day as a nasal spray at meal times, if possible, for up to 12 weeks. Upon completion of the 12-week study treatment period, participants will be invited to enroll in COMPASS PWS OLE, a long-term open-label extension study in which all participants will receive Carbetocin nasal spray for up to 36 months. Participants who do not continue in the open-label extension study will receive a follow-up phone or video call 30 days after the last dose of study drug. The study drug, clinic visits, and study-related procedures are provided at no cost. Participants and caregivers may also receive reimbursement for their time and travel expenses. Talk to the study staff for more information about this. Please ask any questions you may have about the study. Also, be sure to review the informed consent form, which explains the study in more detail, including procedures, risks, and potential side effects, as well as the rights and responsibilities of participating families. Thank you for learning more about the COMPASS PWS study. With the help of families like yours, we can discover potential new treatment options for people with Prader-Willi syndrome.
Okay, so yeah, that's a brief introduction to Carbetocin nasal spray and to the COMPASS PWS study. And I'd be happy to take any questions if people have questions about the study.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jim, for giving this presentation. I thought it was quite concise and informative. We do have questions coming in. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please throw it into the Q&A and we will get through as many of them as we can. Jim, let's start with when the drug needs to be taken. You mentioned it needs to be taken 3 times a day. What about for our kids who are in school, that middle dose, that lunchtime dose? Do they need to take it at school, or is there some flexibility as to when it can be taken?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. We do have flexibility about when the dose can be taken. So the dose should be taken, what we say is at meal times if possible. But if it's not possible, so for example, if it's not possible for the nasal spray to be taken at lunchtime at school, it can be taken when the child gets home, for example, in a sort of mid-afternoon. And the one thing we ask is that the doses are 2.5 hours apart. So if somebody takes a dose in mid-afternoon, then they shouldn't take the evening dose until at least 2.5 hours later.
Mm-hmm. And how about storage of this medication? Does it need to be refrigerated at all times?
Yes, it should be refrigerated and when traveling with it, then you will have a little cooler to keep it cold. Well, that will be supplied.
All right. This next question is regarding eligibility. So there's different subtypes of Prader-Willi syndrome. There's UPD, there's by deletion. Are they both eligible to participate?
Yes. Yeah. So as long as the patient has Prader-Willi syndrome and they have the hyperphagia, they're eligible to participate. Right.
In part of the screening or even during the clinical trial, are blood draws required at any time?
They are. Blood draws are required and at every visit, I think. So that's sort of standard for a clinical study, especially a clinical study that's trying to get approval, FDA approval, just so we can monitor people's medical situation and make sure they're safe. So yes, there are blood draws.
Okay. And then, for people who are not seeing sites near them, are there additional sites that are planning to be added to your list?
The sites on that are on the map right now are pretty much going to be all the sites. It's possible there might be 1 or 2 new sites, but that's pretty much the list. I should say though that we do have support for people to travel to sites. So that if someone's interested in participating in the study and there's a site not so close to them, they could contact a site that's maybe a little bit farther away. But if they qualify for the study, we will facilitate travel to the site and even hotel stays and things like that if necessary.
Perfect. So just to reiterate, Acadia does pay for flights, hotels, other travel related expenses. They will reimburse for those items or pay for them originally?
Yes, that's right.
We
will set them up. So there's we work with a travel agency that sets up the flights and so on directly.
There's a question about recruitment. Is there a deadline? Like, are we expecting that that we have to enroll by a certain time?
Well, yes and no. I mean, as it said, we want to enroll 170 participants, so we will keep enrolling until we get that 170. We just don't know when that is, but we're planning on being sometime next year. So yes, I mean, it would be great if you're interested to kind of contact a site and kind of make plans to enroll in the next few months, and at the latest.
There's a question about eligibility. Actually, there's several questions about eligibility. So if a person has an increased awareness for food, does that qualify them for the study?
That's something that I think you'd have to get into the details about a particular person with the clinician at the site. But basically, it has to be, fairly severe hyperphagia. We call it moderate to severe hyperphagia, meaning they really have that increased hunger, that increased appetite, and they are seeking food out. So it just depends on the particular individual situation.
Right. So, in clinical trials, we need to be able to show change. We need to be able to show a change in hyperphagia. Therefore, for those of you interested in participating in a clinical trial, your child has to have some room to improve. If they're not seeking food, if they're not hyperphagic, there's not any room for improvement. And we need to be able to see that improvement in a clinical trial in order to show the FDA efficacy data. And that's why they have to put up these guardrails as far as who can be eligible. Medications. There's a specific question about, for example, Wakix. It's approved for narcolepsy, but it's also in a clinical trial for Prader-Willi syndrome. Would that exclude someone from participating in this trial?
So if someone is on Wakix, prescribed Wakix, that might not necessarily exclude them. That would have to be discussed with the doctor, how long they've been on it and have they been on a steady dose for long enough. But we do have something I think I mentioned about not having participated recently in another clinical trial. So That again is not exclusionary. There just has to be a little bit of time between the last clinical trial and this clinical trial.
Yeah, I think your slide said 6 months in between clinical trials. So if you were in the pitolisant clinical trial, you would need to wait 6 months from concluding that drug to enrolling in this study.
Right.
Right. How about if someone reaches out to Acadia from your website, do you have an estimated amount of time before they will hear back from someone at Acadia?
Well, hopefully it should be fairly soon. I mean, the Acadia will reach out to the site and hopefully have the site should contact the participant. But also you should get feedback from us, you know, within a couple of days, hopefully a few days.
And if nothing is heard from in a couple of days, what would you suggest a family do?
Well, please try again. We should respond. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know if you can share with us, how far along into enrollment are you? Are you nearing your needed number of patients, or do we still have a ways to go?
We're doing pretty well, but we still have a ways to go. So yeah, there's still time to for people to participate this year and into next year if they're interested. Yeah.
Okay. And how about growth hormone? If someone is on growth hormone or not on growth hormone, are they all eligible to participate?
Yeah, you can still participate if you're on growth hormone.
Okay.
Yeah.
If people have questions as to when trial sites will be opening, how could they get that information?
You know, it really depends on the trial site. So if there's a way to contact us, if you see the information on the site available on our website for the site, you can contact the site. If not, there's a form to fill out and you can inquire about, you know, and we'll let you know what we know.
Mm-hmm. One of the perks of participating in a clinical trial is having early access to a potential treatment. You mentioned the open label extension that is after the double-blind portion of the study. If someone chooses to be in that open label extension, how long do they receive access to Carbetocin for?
So it could be for as long as 3 years that the open label study will run.
Mm-hmm. We hope, of course, that the drug gets approved before then.
Right, we do. So hopefully it would be approved and available before then, but we don't know what's going to happen. So the study could run up to about 3 years.
Yeah. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming and joining us, answering a barrage of questions from us. And ultimately, you know, I hope all of you will seriously consider participating in a clinical trial. You know, participating in a study is personal. You have to find the trial that is best for your loved one and your family. But I can't iterate enough. Like, this is the start. This is where we as a community need to jump in and support these trials, because until they are finished, we will not have our answers. We have to finish these trials in order to get treatments across the finish line. So thank you again to all of our trailblazers who are participating and considering participating. And thank you for joining our webinar today.
Yeah, I want to say thank you also to everybody for joining, and for if you are for considering being in a clinical study. It's a little bit of a, you know, novelty for a lot of people, but we hope you'll consider it. And Susan, thank you again to you for inviting us to be here.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.